Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Daily December 2019, day 28. I'm catching up. So, today, I need to drink as well. Today, the last video I did was me just literally it was the first subclass I found, and it was relatively poorly written. Again, I explained in the last video. I understand the thought process behind it. It was meant to be a power trip, but as far as actually being used in a game with other classes, there was no way. It was just too overpowered. Um, so because I basically just shit on another person's creation, I wanted to do one that I wasn't that I think was relatively well written and balanced. And so what I did is you can actually on D&D Beyond you can actually sort by a bunch of different things. One of which is rating. So I went and I found the highest rated one on there, which is written over a year ago by someone named Turk. And it's called Anime Swordsman. It's a fighter subclass. And to be blunt, it's a joke. That 100% it is just a joke. However, it's a relatively well written joke, and despite the fact that the whole point of it is to be very tongue in cheek and use a lot of anime tropes and stuff like that, like it's funny, and it's something that I could actually see someone playing at my table. Now, again, because of how it's written, you would have to kind of accept the idea that someone was going to be playing just a pure anime stereotype. So if your campaign is not set up to just have one silly character, this would not fit. But that's the only reason it wouldn't fit. Like mechanically, it's not bad. It does some things that are unique. It fits in with the class of the character. Or the theme of the character. It fits in with the fighter class itself. Like it works really well for what it is. So let's just go with it. So I think the first thing I love about this is um, in any class, you generally will have like three sections kind of explaining the class itself. And in subclasses, you'll generally have a little section, at least a paragraph or two, describing that subclass. This, I'm going to read it word for word because it's so beautifully written for the kind of lore of this subclass. Again, it's called Anime Swordsman. And it says, there isn't enough time in your life to hear the backstory of this individual. The anime swordsman's past is shrouded in mystery, and you can bet this fighter's parents were gruesomely murdered in his or her formative years. That's the whole introduction, and it's beautiful. It's tongue in cheek. It actually leaves some room to create a decent character, but then it comes back with the gruesomely murdered, and it's funny. I find this hilarious. Not only that, I find it hilarious that everything works pretty well. Third level, you get two things, which isn't uncommon with. I mentioned in the last one. Generally, you only get one thing per level up, or if you do get two things, One will be like combat. One will be more of role playing. Third level is a little bit different because the third level generally, or whenever you pick your subclass, sometimes it's second, sometimes it's the third, sometimes it's first. Generally, that will be you'll get more than one thing in general, just to kind of really differentiate this subclass. So this is you get two things at the third level with the anime swordsman. Ability 1 or feature 1, gloating monologue. When you choose this archetype at third level, as a bonus action on your turn, you can loudly and deliberately make a long-winded monologue aimed at a creature explaining exactly how you've just gained the upper hand and have been holding back in some ridiculous and obscure way. Make a charisma, intimidation, or performance check contested by the target's passive wisdom insight. If you succeed, you have advantage on the next melee attack you make against the target creature on this turn. So let's talk about, first of all, that's hilarious. Because if you've ever watched anime, it says, "You've awakened my trap card. You've just made a fatal mistake. You see, I've done this, and you're already dead." Or translate that all to Japanese. It's brilliant. So getting past that, the idea that you can intimidate or do a performance check contested by anything to give yourself advantage is really interesting. It uses your bonus action, so there is a balancing aspect. In 5th edition, there are a few things that don't require an action. They're very few and far in between, and they tend to be very, very minor things, or things that are required for other things that do take an action. So if you are designing a homebrew, it should always think about what kind of action it could take and what that action is going to deprive them of. Again, D&D is about choices. And even in combat, you should be making choices. Again, if there's only one right answer, then it's not a choice. Or if there's a best answer that's always the best in every situation, it's not a choice. This, you can use your bonus action to get advantage on a single attack roll. So it's not super overpowered where you get advantage on every attack roll. Because again, with the fighter, they get more attacks than anyone other than monks. So giving things that affect all attacks in a certain round is really powerful the higher the level the fighter is. So this giving it just one makes it still useful, because having that bonus action, especially when you really need it, especially if you're using something like a dagger of venom, where if you you only get one like burst of damage from it, that's really useful, and it gives you a reason to use your charisma or your intimidation or performance in battle, which is not something you tend to see a ton of. Intimidation somewhat, but it's generally just to make people give up. This is something you could do every turn if you wanted, and at low levels it's probably really useful. As you gain more attacks, it loses some of its usefulness, but it's still fairly good. And for a third level ability, it's not bad. And then the other thing you get at third level, and I mentioned before, if you do add multiple things on a level, they should somehow relate. And so Haunted Yet Convenient Past is what it's called, which again is brilliant. At third level, you gain proficiency in intimidation or performance, your choice. So again, the ability you're going to be using for the previous feature, you're now going to get proficiency in if you don't have it already. So again, it feeds in really well. It gives you a tangible bonus, And intimidation and performance can also be used a lot outside of combat. So this kind of fits everything I was talking about. It's not overpowered. It has limits, but it's still very very useful. And it feeds into the fighter class and what it does well, which is it gets a lot of attacks. This can make because you can mix up, or you can break up your attacks. You can pop that bonus action anytime between your attacks to give it the advantage on one. So again, really interesting, unique kind of thing that you don't really see. I mean, the Shadow Monk at level 6, whenever they Shadow Step, they get advantage on their next attack roll, but it requires being in dim light or darkness and all this stuff. So it's not without precedent. Let's put it that way. At 7th level, you get the power of friendship. So starting at 7th level, when a creature drops one of your allies to 0 hit points in sight, you go into a blind rage and attempt to revenge them. You have advantage on all melee attack rolls against the creature that downed your ally, and disadvantage on all attack rolls against any other target. This effect ends if the target dies or your ally regains at least 1 hit point. So, again, useful ability. It has limitations, so it's not too powerful. It fits into the fighters, because, again, fighters get a lot of attacks. This one actually gives them advantage on all their attacks against a specific enemy. I like it. The other thing that's nice, because this could really quickly, in like a boss, like dragon type setting, this could very quickly get out of hand, because there's no one else to fight, so the disadvantage on attacking anyone other than the target doesn't apply when you're fighting a dragon. And, you know, definitely at high levels, that's a lot of attacks they're going to be doing. However, as soon as your ally regains a hit point, it ends. So I like it. Like I said, it has the possibility of getting kind of overpowered, but in order for it to get really overpowered, you would have to leave one of your allies unconscious and dying. So it's nice checks and balances. Again, for a 7th level ability, it's really interesting. It will change combat. The only issues I find with it, again, like I mentioned in the last one, word choice is important. It does say you go into a blind range and attempt to revenge them. This isn't a choice for the character. This is something they have to do. I think it might be... because again, if you're fighting a big baddie and one of his weak little minions knocks out an ally, that means your fighter, that's your anime swordsman, now has to fixate on the lesser guy instead of taking out the big baddie. So I think it would probably be a little bit improved. Instead of saying you go into a blind rage, you can go into a blind rage, just to give a little bit of choice. Otherwise, I think it's really interesting, especially when you could combine it with the other fighter abilities. Like with Action Surge. If your ally is going to be up next turn, Action Surge and get another 2, 3, or 4 advantage attacks. Try and get some crits in there. Depending on the magic item you're using, you could be doing some major awesome stuff. So yeah, I like it. I think it's interesting. Level 10. This is probably one of my favorites. just for the name alone, is plot armor, is the level 10 ability. Uh, it's basically starting at 10th level. When rolling a death saving, when rolling for death saving throws, you only suffer one failure when rolling a 1, and you regain 1 hit points on a roll of a 19 or 20. This just basically makes them a little bit harder to kill, and it helps them get back into combat faster, which really fits with that fighter idea of I make lots of attacks. Well, if I'm unconscious, I can't. So being able to pop back up with 1 hit point, the death saving throws, a lot of people aren't aware. They happen at the beginning of your turn, not the end. So with anyone else, you get a nat 20, you pop up with 1 hit point, and you still have your turn. So with this, instead of a 5% chance, you have a 10% chance. And if you roll really poorly, normally, and then that one gets you 2 failed saves, it only gives you 1 on this. It's a really unique, interesting thing that changes how you play the character without being overpowered. If it was something like whenever you roll a death saving throw, whenever you make a save, you get 1 hit point, that would be overpowered. But just increasing the odds by 5% is pretty good. I like it. I think it's really interesting. 15th level is the next ability you get. It's called Untapped Potential. Starting at 15 level, you get a climbing speed equal to your current walking speed. This benefit works even when moving up or across something completely flat, smooth surfaces, but only in short bursts. You fall if you end your turn on or adjacent or against a surface, and nothing is holding you aloft. Additionally, the extra attack feature from the fighter class now applies when you take the ready action to make an attack. So first things first, my understanding of the ready action is if you ready the attack action and you have extra attack, you already are going to be allowed to make multiple attacks, because it says whenever you take the attack action, you take 2 attacks or 3 attacks instead of 1. And that's what you're doing, is you are readying the attack action. It already takes your I can't remember the action you take on other people's turns. Your reaction. There we go. To do a readied action. So, yeah. So that one is kind of just a. I think that's how it already works for everyone. I'm pretty sure. However, the climbing speed equal to your current walking speed. It's very similar to a monk ability you get, where they just can walk on vertical surfaces. I like it. I like it on my monk. It's a 15th level ability. There's a lot of uses for it. I think it's a little bit underpowered. Simply because, yeah, being able to move anywhere is nice, but your last ability didn't really give you like a surge in power or anything. It was a little bit weaker, still good. This one I think could have been a level where they could have added multiple things, like if you are on a wall or something, or if you climb up a wall to attack, or climb down, you get a bonus to the damage or something. I think that might make it a little bit nicer, because right now with just those things, the class is just a little bit underpowered. That's the only change I would make, though, because it's not a bad ability. It's interesting. It's fun. If the ready action to make an attack work the way it's described here, yes, this would be a very good ability. But my understanding is it already works that way, so that kind of loses a little bit. And then another really brilliant feature name, the ridiculously impractical ultimate attack. Starting at 18th level, as an action, you can make a single melee attack against a creature with extra anime power. A massive explosion forms from the power of your convictions and monologues, and each creature in a 40-foot radius from your target, excluding yourself, must make a dexterity saving throw. The ability save DC equals 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your strength or dex mod, your choice. The sphere spreads around corners. If your attack hits, the target takes the damage as normal and makes its saving throw against the explosion at disadvantage. A creature takes 20d6 fire damage and 20d6 bludgeoning damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. And once you use this feature, you must complete a long rest before you can use it again. This is a massively overpowered ability, which is the entire point. And because it's so overpowered, it actually balances. Hear me out. There's a couple very specific words that make this kind of a balanced ability, because you're going to do 40d6 damage on a failed save in addition to your melee attack. That's a lot, and you're going to do that to anyone within a 40-foot radius sphere. So that's the diameter. That's an 80-foot sphere. That is massive. However, it says each creature, not enemies, every creature. So all your allies will be hit with this as well. And that's the balancing aspect. If you want to use this massively overpowered thing, you have just as good a chance to kill your friends and shoot to the bad guys. And most parties are not going to be 40 feet away from the fight. It just doesn't work that way. So because of that, the sheer magnitude of the area it hits is a balancing factor, and due to the fact that the last two abilities have been a little bit weak sauce, this kind of makes up for it and makes for a relatively balanced and hilarious class, or subclass. And then you can only use it once per long rest is 100% good. This is not an ability you should be able to use anytime you want. It should be very limited because of how damaging it is. But for an 18th level ability, it's awesome. Your dude comes in with a big old sword and just goes nuke goes off. Like, that is so, it's so anime. Like, this entire thing is so hilarious, but remarkably well balanced. You still have all the fighter aspects and the extra feats and everything you get to make a very interesting, useful character. And this just adds this incredible kind of color to the character. And I love it. The whole thing, the whole type thing literally is less than a screen of text. Like, you literally, in a D&D book, it would take up like one column on a two-column page, barely. Like, it's one of the shortest subclasses I've ever seen. And yet, it's so interesting. Like, I would totally love to have a character like this in one of my less serious games. Like, I have a parody game called The Adventures of Meh, The Mighty Extreme Heroes, or meh for short. Someone like this would fit so well in there. It's super funny, and it wouldn't feel underpowered on the field. It wouldn't feel overpowered on the field. Like it'd be able to hold its own. You'd still be able to have fun. Like I love this glass. Like I said, there's some minor changes I would make. Um, just to because once you hit 18, the class is great. There's a couple levels in there where you just don't feel very powerful compared to other classes at the same level. Where I would make some tweaks just to add a little bit more uh, uh, utility to it. But overall, this is really good, and it's a joke. That's one of the reasons why I kind of came down so hard on the last one. It's not that I think they were a bad person, but they wrote a bad class. And to me, that like I can understand like honest mistakes and something like that, or maybe not doing the math, but the entire class was just a huge power trip, min maxer fantasy, and I don't like min maxers. They generally tend to take the enjoyment away from the other players who are either forced to min max with them in order to feel special, or just have to take a back seat to their good grandstanding. And they make it not fun for the DM because the entire point of min maxing is to screw over whatever plan the DM had, because you've made this invincible character to have your own little power fantasy. And so that's why I came down so hard on the class, the last one. And then you see something like this, which is a joke, but it's written beautifully. And they have all the previous versions of it, and the other one was updated like I don't know, like a couple dozen times, like maybe 20 some odd times. This one has only had 8 try this again. It's only had 8 revisions. It doesn't actually list exactly what the revisions were, but it really wasn't that hard to balance it. And again, my little critiques on that aren't needed for the class to be fun. They're just the things I would like if I was playing the class, or if I was DMing the class at my table. They're by no means things that have to happen. Whereas the other class, there were things that had to happen before I would even let someone consider playing it. And then it's got a ton of comments. It's just a great class, and it just goes to show you don't have to be an expert in D&D to build a fun homebrew aspect. You don't have to do years of play testing. You don't have to understand every single class and how it works. You just need to have an idea and the ability to look at other classes and see what they get, and make sure your class is going to be in line with what other classes are getting around that point. And that's it. It's really cool. It's really fun. Yes. Trying to remember. Turk. Turk, if you ever watched this, I love your class. Like I said, some minor changes for me personally would make me love it even more. But just how it is, I would allow this at my table for certain games that it fit thematically in. I probably wouldn't allow it in my more serious games, just because the tone would clash with other things. Like if the entire party is like, you know, mourning the fact that they just, you know, the big baddie just took over their hometown, and you have a guy that goes into a monologue, takes out a sword that's 7 times too large, and then goes in and explodes, it's gonna be kind of weird. Um, or one of my favorite things, if we're talking politics and they're trying to figure out which country is trying to screw them over this time with tariffs and taxes, and you know, I put politics into my games. This character would not fit in very well. I shall destroy the taxes. Anyway, that's all for me. I will see you guys next time. All right. Bye.